Welcome back to a course on calculus RS integration. In this lecture, we will start with the definition, and based on the definition, we are going to see a theorem. The definition is as follows. The unit step function. So this is the definition of a unit step function, which is denoted as I and is defined by I of x is 0 if x is non-positive and is 1 if x is positive. Okay, this is the definition of a unit step function, and with the help of this definition we are going to prove a theorem which states if a is smaller than s, which is smaller than b, the function f is defined on the interval ab in the usual sense, and this f is continuous at s, and alpha of x is defined to be I of x minus s. If these things are there, then we have integral a to b f d alpha is simply the function evaluated at point s. Right? So let us get into the proof of this theorem. Before getting into the proof of this theorem, few things that I would like to say here about the function f. Okay, if you see, this f is defined in the closed interval a comma b. Okay, at the point a and b we cannot talk about the continuity, but we can talk about the left continuity of the function f at the point b and the right continuity of the function at a, since these are endpoints. But apart from these 2 points, that is, if you consider the open interval, that is the segment AB, we can talk about the continuity of the function at this segment. Okay, from the given information, can we come to a conclusion that f is continuous at this segment? Yes, of course, because your s may be any point between a and b, and all those f is given to be continuous at that point s, which means the function f is continuous in the segment AB. Right? Now let us get into the proof of this theorem. Now what should we prove is that, first of all, we'll have to prove this f is RS integrable and the integration value is f of s. So in order to prove this, first thing that we have to check is, we'll have to check alpha is monotonically increasing. Only then we can do the proceedings of this theorem. Okay, so this is done in 3 different cases. The first case is we choose x and y. Okay, in order to check monotonicity, what should we check? We'll have to, okay, let me write that as in different color. If x less than y, this must imply alpha of x less than or equals alpha of y. This is what we need to prove. Am I right? Okay. Now we will have to choose x and y. Okay, let me choose x and y, and I am choosing this way. Okay, this is the first case. This very well tells me that s smaller than or equals x and s smaller than y, which means x minus s is non-negative and y minus s is positive. If it is so, then what is I of x minus s? This will be either, if it is positive I will get 1, if it is 0 I will get 0. So this may be either 0 or 1. And I of y minus s is what? Since this is positive, this is going to be equal to 1. And alpha of x is defined in the form of I of x minus s. Therefore, my alpha of x would be either 0 or 1, and alpha of y is what? 1. This very well tells me that x smaller than y implies my alpha of x smaller than or equals alpha of y. So this is the first case. Now we'll have to prove the rest of the cases, and then we can come to the conclusion that alpha is monotonically increasing. The second case is I choose s between x and y. In this case, my x minus s would be negative and y minus s would be positive. In this case, my I of x minus s is going to be 0 and I of y minus s is going to be 1. This confirms that x less than y implies alpha of x less than alpha of y. And the third case is this is going to be there and this is smaller than or equals s, which means what? X minus s is negative and y minus s is non-positive. This confirms that I of x minus s is going to be 0 and I of y minus s is also 0. Hence, x smaller than y implies alpha of x equals alpha of y. From these cases, we conclude alpha of x smaller than or equals alpha of y whenever x smaller than y. Therefore, alpha is monotonically increasing. So now we have proved alpha is monotonically increasing, and the next one is we are going to make use of the continuity of f. Okay, how are we going to make use of the continuity of f? Since, okay, let us start this way. Given f is continuous at s, right? At the point s, given f is continuous, then by the definition of continuity, for every epsilon positive there exists a delta positive such that absolute of f of t minus absolute f of s less than epsilon whenever absolute of t minus s less than delta, and we mark this as equation 1. Okay, this is by the definition of a continuity. Now let us get into the things. Let P be a partition in such a way that P is x0, which is nothing but a, x1, which is nothing but s, and x2, which is s plus delta, and x3, which is b. Okay, this is a partition of the closed interval AB. Now let us consider delta alpha 1. It is what? It is alpha of x1 minus alpha of x0, and let us calculate delta alpha 2 and delta alpha 3. All these things let us calculate here itself. x2 minus x1, and this is alpha of x3 minus alpha of x2. Okay, this is alpha of s minus alpha of a, right? Alpha of s is what? I of s minus s, and this is I of a minus s. If you see, okay, let me do it in another color here. uh, this is my point A and this is my point B. In between I have chosen this point to be my S, and this is my S plus delta. Okay, S minus S, it is 0, therefore I of 0 has to be 0. So this is 0. A minus S, so this quantity minus this quantity, it is very well that it is a negative, it is going to be a negative quantity, therefore what, this is also 0, right? Your delta alpha 1 is 0. Now what is this? Is alpha of s plus delta, and this is alpha of s. So this is what? I of s plus delta minus s minus I of s. So this is I of delta minus I of, I of s minus s. So this is going to be 0. I of 0 is 0 and I of delta. Delta is some positive quantity. Therefore, it is going to be 1 minus 0, which turns to be 1. And similarly, here it is alpha of b minus alpha of s plus delta. And alpha of b means I of b minus s minus I of s plus delta minus s. So b minus s, which is a positive quantity, then hence this value is 1 and this is I of delta and the value is 1, this happens to be 0, right? Now we have calculated delta alpha 1, delta alpha 2 and delta alpha 3. Now we shall find the UPF alpha and LPF alpha. Okay, so with these calculations, hence UPF alpha is what? Summation I runs from 1 to 3 mi delta alpha I. So it is m1 delta alpha 1 plus m2 delta alpha 2 m3 delta alpha 3. Whatever may be the value of m1, m2 and m3, we are going to get m1 multiplied with 0, m2 multiplied with 1 and m3 multiplied with 0, which happens to be m2. Okay, and LPF alpha is by definition, that is summation I runs from 1 to 3 small mi delta alpha I. This happens to be small m1 delta alpha 1 plus small m2 delta alpha 2 plus small m3 delta alpha 3, and again this is m1 multiplied with 0 plus m2 multiplied with 1 plus m3 multiplied with 0, hence it is m2. Okay, we have calculated all this stuff. Now for x, some x in this interval s plus s comma s plus delta, what we have? We have s smaller than or equals s smaller than or equals s plus delta, and this very well tells us that x minus s is smaller than or equals delta. Okay, now we have written equation 1 by the definition of continuity of the function at s using that result. Now what we are going to do is that this very well tells us that, okay, what very well tells us that we had x minus s smaller than or equals delta. This implies by equation 1 that absolute of f of x minus absolute of f of x minus f of s less than epsilon whenever absolute of x minus s less than delta. Okay, so from this what shall we write? Minus epsilon less than or okay, if we have equality here, it is going to be, okay, less than f of x minus f of s less than epsilon. Now let us consider the right hand part. So consider f of x minus f of s less than epsilon. Here you see s is some point that we have taken in the segment a comma b, and x is a variable here. So f of x less than f of s. Okay, let me put it in the other way. Epsilon plus f of s. This is one way, and the other way is minus epsilon less than f of x minus f of s. Okay, and from this what shall we have is that f of s plus epsilon less than f of x, right? And this may be written as f of x greater than epsilon plus f of s. We shall put it in this way, right? And what is the thing that we have considered? What is the x that we have considered here? If you see, x is considered in this subinterval s comma s plus delta. So in s comma s plus delta, your supremum value is what? M2, and the infimum value is small m2, right? So these things we'll have to remember clearly. So in the place of, since this is okay, infimum of f of x, okay, let me put this way. We know that infimum of f of x less than or equals f of x less than or equals supremum of f of x. Therefore, what we have is infimum of f of x less than epsilon plus f of s, and here supremum of f of x is bigger than epsilon plus f of s, and the infimum is m2, right? So epsilon plus f of s, and if I add a 0 together, and I shall write this as LPF alpha less than epsilon plus f of s, and when I take supremum to this quantity, that is supremum over all possible partitions, this turns to be what? My lower integral a to b f d alpha is less than or equals epsilon plus f of s, right? And here using the same arguments, I will get m2 bigger than epsilon plus f of s, and this is nothing but my UPF alpha is bigger than epsilon plus f of s, and when I take the infimum to this case over p, which is going to be epsilon plus f of s only, since these are independent of p, we get the results directly. So this is the upper Riemann integral a to b f d alpha bigger than or equals epsilon plus f of s. Now hold those two results as it is, and observe that f is continuous. Therefore, f is what? R is integrable. This very well tells us that lower Riemann integral of this one, upper Riemann integral of this one is going to be the integral of this one. Hence, if we mark this as equation 2 and this as equation 3, okay, did I wait? This is minus epsilon, right? So this is f of s minus epsilon, f of s minus epsilon, f of s minus epsilon, minus epsilon plus minus epsilon minus epsilon. Okay, from sorry, hence from 2 and 3 we have, so from 2 what are we going to have? Integral f d alpha integral a to b f d alpha is less than or equals epsilon plus f of s, and by 3 we are going to have integral a to b f d alpha is greater than or equals f of s minus epsilon. So from these two we shall conclude that integral a to b f d alpha is simply f of s. This is because of the reason that epsilon is some arbitrary quantity. Right? We have established the requirement and this completes the proof. Thank you.